Hey there, crazy cats. We're back. It is week 9 of the Tailgate Committee. My name is Andy Hopper. I'm joined by Noah Dibler and Tom Scavetta. Week 9 of the college football season is here. It doesn't feel right. It's going by so fast. I don't know about you guys, but the weather has finally turned to fall around here in Illinois, so that crisp is in the air. I think it was only like 50 degrees here today. Quite a difference from the beginning of this October. And it feels like football weather. We are in the middle of an awesome football season. If it's your first time here, welcome in. Welcome to the Tailgate Committee. We are your new favorite college football show. Follow us on social media at the Tailgate Committee on Facebook and Instagram, and we're at the Tailgate.com on Twitter. Like us and subscribe for weekly college football content. So I think we will just jump right in here to our week 8 recap, because there was a lot of fun games last weekend. We're going to look at 5 of them. We're going to start on Friday night. Down go the Hurricanes in Miami. Louisville walks in and walks out with a 24-21 win. 4 interceptions thrown by Carson Beck, a career high. Miller Moss throws 2 touchdown passes to Chris Bell, adds a score on his legs. We saw a fake field goal from the Cardinals. 3 different players taking snaps from under center, a reverse that wasn't a reverse. Jeff Brom was pulling out all the stops, and they get a win, a big win against the Hurricanes, snapping the Hurricanes' 10-game home winning streak. Last team to beat Miami at home, Louisville in 2023. So not something they are used to. Moss was 23-37 for 248 yards. Isaac Brown added 113 yards on the ground on only 15 carries. And then Chris Bell was the star, 9 catches for 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, 35 and 36 yards for Chris. Beck, not so great, 25 for 35. He did have 271 yards, 4 interceptions, like I mentioned. But I think a big story here is the lack of running game from Miami. 63 yards on 24 carries against Louisville. Louisville did come into the night with the number 1 defense in the ACC. So they have been doing this, on a regular basis this season. But I mean, 4 interceptions and you get absolutely no help on the ground. I think Miami's leading rusher had like 18 yards. That's just not a recipe for success. Louisville was 0-18 against top 10 teams in true road games before this week. And they have lost those matchups by an average of 26.3 points. So this is a huge win for Louisville. They're 1-8 against teams ranked number 1 or number 2 in the AP poll. But Jeff Brom, I believe, is now 4-0 against AP top 5 teams as a head coach. He is the opposite, the reverse, anti-James Franklin, boys. He's big game Brom. We need to start calling him that. But yeah, I mean, Malachi Toney got in for a score. Hurricanes kept it close, but I mean, they come into this game at home, 2 touchdown favorites, and Louisville looked like the better team for the majority of the game. Noah, I want to start with you because you had some interesting comments in our group chat after the game regarding Carson Beck. This is something that you saw last year, and it's not necessarily something new for Carson Beck, in your opinion. I know career high in interceptions, but he is. You've seen him turn the ball over before and affect games. So let me get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I didn't know. Obviously, I amp it up a little bit when I'm trolling, but I don't think I don't think Carson Beck is terrible by any means. I think he's one of those guys that when he's on, we've seen it so far this season, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. In 2023, I'd say he was also one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I mean, there was a reason guys come in the last season. He was the Heisman favorite. but he's one of those guys. When he's on, he's on, but when he's not, he's really not. And I think the problem that I had with a lot of people regarding Carson Beck was after he transferred, a lot of people who haven't watched a UGA game in their lives or are just massive Carson Beck fans decided, oh no, it was everyone else's fault. I remember opening game of the season for Miami. Greg McElroy, that idiot commentator, said something like, "Oh, Carson Beck was the scapegoat last season," as if UGA fans have no clue what they're talking about. The fact he threw 11 interceptions in 5 games, the excuses people made were the offensive line, the wide receiver, and the offense coordinator. All three of those were weak. I'm not saying those weren't problems. They were. But as someone in the past I've been on several podcasts with like to say, both can be true. Those were problems. Carson Beck was also a problem. And we saw it in this game. What's the excuse this time? He has weapons. Miami's, looked like a top 3 team all season. Okay, you can say that they didn't have a running game. That's college football. That's football for you guys. Sometimes you're not going to have a running game. You need to try and win a game. And it's not like Carson Beck just had, an average pedestrian game or whatever. He threw 4 interceptions, no touchdowns. His touchdown interception ratio this season, guys, by the way, is on pace to be even worse than it was last year on a team that, at least perception-wise, has less problems than the UGA team last year. Louisville, credit to them. They're 5-1. They got a really good win. They played great. Miller Moss, I thought, was solid. Chris Bell, by the way, is an absolute beast. Same with Malachi Tony on the other side. But, this is always a feeling you kind of have with these Miami teams, right? Every year it feels like you can expect them to slip up and lose games you wouldn't expect. We saw it last year when they, had that loss to Georgia Tech. They looked like a contender. Then, by the end of the season, they suddenly lost 3 games. They're not even in title contention. Miami, it's tough sledding for them, a loss like this. But luckily for them, looking at the rest of their schedule, I don't see any absolutely horrific games for them, so they could still technically win out. But this isn't surprising, guys. And, Carson Beck, another thing that I saw from him that really ticked me off was he was in a press conference talking about his 4th interception. What went wrong in that play? And did Carson Beck come out and say, yeah, you know what? I didn't make a good read. The guy jumped the route. He did give credit to the defender. I will say that. But, he just said, I didn't make a good read. The defender made a good play or whatnot. I'll do better next time. No. Instead of what he does, he completely throws his teammate under the bus, says, oh, we ran the wrong play. The guy ran the wrong route. After, by the way, he's already thrown 3 other interceptions. So it's not like you can say before that play he was just, absolutely lighting it up or anything. They also schemed by 3 points, by the way, I'm pretty sure. So it was a very winnable game for them. He just didn't show up, man. But the whole team didn't show up on offense. But also, you got to give credit to Louisville. There is this tendency, I think, a lot of times when a team like this loses to just say, oh, what did that team do wrong? But Louisville took out and took that and won that game, man. Miami, they didn't show up. And Louisville took full advantage. They're 5-1 for a reason, guys. You don't become 5-1 in the ACC by a fluke. They've had a really good year, and they earned this win.
Absolutely, a big win for the Hurricanes. Tom, your thoughts on the game? How does this affect Miami's chances, going forward and into postseason play?
Yeah, well, look, it wasn't a good game for Miami. I want to say, too, that the defense did not contain Chris Bell and Miller Moss that much. I mean, you have these star power guys like Ruben Bain, among others, who need to get to the quarterback, and they just didn't do it. Chris Bell had 2 touchdown catches. Noah really hit on all the Carson Beck points that I wanted to, but yeah, look, I'm not surprised. Louisville is notorious for doing this. Last year, after Notre Dame lost to NIU, how we ran the table, Louisville was the only team that kept it competitive against us. So the fact that they beat Miami, I'm not shocked. All in all, I think now Georgia Tech is the clear favorite in the ACC after their performance against Duke. And it'll be a dogfight between a few teams, probably Miami and Louisville, to see who gets to play Georgia Tech. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight race in the ACC for sure. And this one might have a big say in what happens going forward. So, Louisville over Miami, the first one we're going to talk about. We're going to go to the SEC for the next one. This was an incredible game. Points everywhere. Georgia defends their home turf 43-35 over Ole Miss. Georgia picks up the win. Stockton, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 of those to Lawson Lucky. Tom, we had to get a tight end reference in there. Also, incredible name. Trinidad Chambliss looked pretty comfortable, through 3/4 of this game against this Georgia defense and against the crowd. Ole Miss scored touchdowns on their first 5 possessions of the game, and we're up by 9 going into the fourth quarter. Georgia has now trailed at halftime in 4 of their 5 SEC games and are 3-1 in those games. They trailed Tennessee 21-17, trailed Auburn 10-3, and this one might have been their best comeback yet, or let's say the most impressive comeback, because it certainly looked like Ole Miss had the keys and were about to drive away with this game. Georgia's defense comes out of nowhere in the fourth quarter and blanks the Rebels. They force 2 punts, the first and only punts of the game, I believe, and the offense led by Stockton puts up 17 points. It was a very fun game to watch. Noah, I'm going to let you talk about this one. Obviously from the perspective of a Georgia fan, this one had to be pretty fun for you.
Well, the fourth quarter was pretty fun.
Yeah, I guess the ending. Yes, correct.
Yeah, the first 3 quarters were a bit hairy, but look, I'll just say this: what a game! What an absolute throw of a game! And I just want to say this as well: Gunnar Stockton, man, he had a lot of question marks around him coming this season. Kind of marked as he'll basically be the make or break point for this team, if you will, because he was an unknown coming at quarterback. I think he's fit to build, guys. I really do. In these big games, he has shown up. They needed an absolutely massive fourth quarter, and credit to him, he delivered it. 289 yards, guys, 4 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown on the ground as well, 5 total touchdowns, almost 350 yards offense, 26 of 31 as well. He was clinical. Our running game overall was amazing, over 200 yards, 6 for 11 on third, over 500 yards of offense. It was just a great offensive performance. That said, it was also a great offense. This was basically a game, guys. If you like defense, if you're a defensive coordinator, you should have just looked away from this game because there was just there was offense out there because there was no D whatsoever. I got to give Chambliss credit as well, guys. I think he played really well, especially on the ground. 2 rushing touchdowns. He had over 300 yards offense. But credit, the only good thing I'd say the UGA defense did, they actually did do a decent job containing the run. I know they had 4 rushing touchdowns, but they averaged less than 4 yards per carry. I mean, Lacey averaged 2.6 as their starting running back, so that was good. Lawson Lucky, this guy has been underutilized the entire year. We kind of expected Oscar Delp to be our guy after Brock Bowers left. He hasn't quite been what we expected, but Lucky has looked really good when he's been given the chance. In this game, he got the chance. He scored 3 touchdowns, so credit to him for that one. But yeah, man, I mean, there was just, very little pass rush in this game, only 1 sack between both the teams. I don't even have the TFL count. Three combined TFLs between both teams, 0 for UGA. So, I mean, there was just really not much going on. But thrilling game, guys. 17-0 in the fourth quarter as well. This was a big win. It was really rocky a bit. I was very impressed that Ole Miss came out, especially the fact it was a road game. I mean, they got off to a great start, and it was looking very hairy. But credit to UJ, they got it back to a respectable 21-20 at halftime. Third quarter was rough, but then they took control of the game. It was if you're a neutral, this is a very exciting game for a guy like me who's a fan of one of the teams. Obviously, it's very nerve-wracking, but they got the win in the end. It was a massive win as well because Ole Miss was ranked number 5. That'll be great for their CFP chances. And the rest of the season, I think Georgia is in really good shape, actually. They have 2 massive games left. They have Texas at home. Texas has had their issues this season, so hopefully they can pull that out. And then they have Georgia Tech the final week of the season, I think could actually be a massive game. I mean, it's very possible that could be close to a top 5 matchup, definitely top 10, unless one of these teams slips up until then. But yeah, massive win, guys. Great game from the offense, which the offense gets a lot of criticism mainly because of Bobo. They did a great job in this one.
Absolutely. You definitely, hell of a performance from Stockton. And I texted you, I didn't realize the requirement for being a Georgia quarterback is having your eyes as far apart as possible, back to back with him and Carson Beck is pretty hilarious. But hat tip to them. Tom, big one in the SEC. Lane Kiffin said Ole Miss needed this one to really take the next step into the SEC. He said he told his guys, you're up by 9 going in the fourth quarter. You need another score, and we did not do that. They held scoreless in the fourth quarter. What do you think? Does Ole Miss still have a chance in this SEC race, or you think Georgia's firmly established themselves as the best team in that conference?
Well, they took Georgia to the brink. Unfortunately, they fell apart in that fourth quarter. Dad Chambliss has proven that he belongs in the SEC, but Gunnar Stockton outdueled him when it mattered most. I mean, this guy was phenomenal. He had 4 touchdown passes, 1 rushing, threw for nearly 300, which is not a common Stockton thing to do. At least that's what's advertised. He's starting to prove to people, don't advertise me as that game manager type of quarterback. Know that I can throw the football and I can beat you, right? Georgia is this dominant team. They could run the football. They could throw good, quick, intermediate passes, but they could also throw the ball down the field. And I think Gunnar, he's starting to turn into a guy that you could rely on to potentially win a championship. And I do think they are the class of the SEC right now. Do I think Ole Miss is out of it? No. But they can't lose again. They can't slip up in any more games if they want to appear in that SEC championship.
Absolutely. We're going to stay in the SEC for this one, for this next one. Vandy, a historic win for the Commodores, 31-24 over LSU. They are 6-1 for the first time since 1950. Beat LSU for the first time since 1990. Only the 4th meeting since 1947, with both schools ranked in the AP poll. And the Commodores snapped a 10-game skid to LSU with this one. They're bowl eligible, and it's week 9 for Vanderbilt. That used to be the ceiling. Just make a bowl game if you're Vandy, right? And now you have Diego Pavia, 160 yards and a score, ran for 86 yards and 2 more touchdowns, just completely took over this game. Vandy felt like the better team the whole game, in my opinion. And Garrett Nussmeier, I want to credit him. He did make some pretty impressive plays down the stretch to keep the Tigers in this game, but it just wasn't enough. In the second half, and another question mark for Brian Kelly's team. They now are 5-2. They're 2-2 in conference play. Tom, I want to start with you on this one. Your thoughts on Vanderbilt, and do they threaten the top teams in the SEC? I mean, they're 7th in the country, averaging 43 points a game. This LSU defense only giving up 11.8, so we'll say 12, and they dropped 31 on them. Pretty impressive stuff from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they're certainly in the mix. I think they are a team that is going to be dark horse. Diego Pavia looked really good in this game. He had a touchdown pass and 2 rushing. Smile, not bad, but the defense was missing Whit Weeks, and I thought Pavia was able to take advantage of that on some of his throws where the middle of the field was open. But one problem with Vanderbilt now that I see coming up, the Commodores, they got Missouri at home. They got Texas on the road. Then they play Auburn and Kentucky. Both of those should be wins. And then you're at Tennessee. If you could somehow win out, you have a shot. And that's what's so tough about the SEC. It's arguably nowadays the best conference in college football. But that is the depth of it. There is so much depth. There is no room for error, right? Georgia, who we'll talk about as the team to beat in the SEC, them and Bama at the top this year, both of those teams have lost the game. So it's almost as if, yeah, they're the best teams, but if they slip, then the best teams won't be in the SEC championship game. So I do think this is a great win for Pavia and the Commodores. I do think it speaks more bad about LSU and their inability to run the football this season. Clark Lee, former Notre Dame DC, outclassing his groomer and Brian Kelly. You love to see it if you're a Clark Lee fan. And Brian Kelly, I'll use the word disliker over hater. I love both those guys. I really do. It was tough to see one of them lose. Stick a fork in LSU. They're done.
Yeah, Noah, where does LSU go from here? Is it time to start thinking about a moving on from Brian Kelly? It's not time to hit the panic button just yet. Can they salvage this 5-2 start?
Can they salvage the start? No, I think I agree with Tom. I think their season is over. Not only because they've lost the 2 games. I mean, those 2 losses were to really good teams. I mean, Ole Miss on the road, we were just talking about them, and then obviously Vanderbilt, what a season they're having. But look at their next 2 games, guys. They are at home against A&M, and then after that, they go on the road to Alabama. I mean, those are 2, top 4 teams that I think it's pretty fair to say you would have much more faith in those teams to win the games than LSU from what you've seen this season. They just have too many offensive issues. Their defense in this game was not amazing either. Gave up 31 points, what have you. As for Brian Kelly, I think this is kind of, what you see is what you get with BK. He's a very good coach. I'm never going to say he's a bad coach by any means. He's always going to have your program in a very respectable position. But is he that coach that can take the next step? Is he the coach that can win those big games? We talk about this a lot when we were talking about James Franklin last week. I don't think so. I think we've seen, this isn't like BK is some new coach by any means. He's been around for decades, guys, and it just seems like it's the same story every year. I don't think he's done enough to get fired because, like I said, he's one of those coaches. He's always going to have you winning 9-10 games or whatever. LSU's always going to be an upper half team in the SEC. I don't think that's a question unless they just have an absolute disaster year. But can they take the next step with BK? I don't think so, personally. I think we've seen enough of his MO over the years to know I don't think he's ever going to take that next step, especially in the SEC. I mean, that's one of the top 2 conferences that is the most difficult to take that next step. So, no, I wouldn't fire him. However, I don't think in the next few years that I would expect much to change if I was an LSU fan. I think it would just be more of the same to where eventually he will get let go, whether that's him getting fired or, one of those mutually parting ways things that they like to put out there. But no, the biggest indictment to me for LSU guys is the fact I was not, people were not surprised they lost this game. I think, didn't we all pick Vandy last week? I know I did.
Mm-hmm.
But, a couple years ago, that would be unconscionable. That's both a credit to, how far LSU seems to have fallen the past years. And it's also a credit to how Vanderbilt has been. And once again, you got to give credit to this Vanderbilt team, guys. You can talk about LSU's problems all you want. This is probably the best Vanderbilt team I have seen since, funny enough, since James Franklin was coaching them, which was about 12, 13 years ago now. This is a really good football team, guys. They didn't get the 6-1 win by a fluke. They've had, some really good games. They have a massive game this week as well, by the way, that we're going to get into later. But this is a good football team. They earned this win. LSU, stick a fork in them, as Tommy Boy like to say.
They're cooked. They're done, ladies and gentlemen. On to Tommy Boy's team, Notre Dame, a big win in South Bend, 34-24 over the Trojans. They keep the shillelagh at Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love is an absolute monster. 228 yards and a touchdown, career high for him. His previous best was 157 over Purdue a couple weeks ago. The guy's having a monster year. Oh, by the way, you also have Jadarian Price, who's the number 2 back that can do just the same thing. He had a 100-yard kickoff return in the third quarter to break this game open. Like we said, Notre Dame 34-20 for the win. Jaden Mayava looked okay. A few crucial mistakes, a few drops by, Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon that don't usually happen for those guys. And the defense, they just couldn't stop a nosebleed, but that is the Lincoln Riley way, right? CJ Carr was 16 for 26, 136 yards and a touchdown. Those numbers aren't going to jump out at you folks, but he didn't have to do much. The Irish were just that good on the ground, just dominating. Tom likes to say it, meat and potatoes football, and getting it done. Christian Gray had a big interception in the second half, so Price returns the touchdown, and USC gets the ball back almost instantly. Christian Gray gets the interception right as if he heard our group chat, Tom, because right before that, he got beat for a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and flagged twice for pass interference. So it was a rough second half, and he definitely made up for it, in a couple pass deflections for the Irish in crucial moments. USC just couldn't get it done on late down situations, 3rd and 4th down, when they really needed to have it. Notre Dame keeping their playoff hopes alive. Tom, you've said it on the show. They basically have to win out and be perfect. What were your thoughts on this game? What do you think it means for Notre Dame moving forward?
Well, it means a lot because we don't have as many ranked teams on our schedule this year as we did last year. If Navy continues to win, they may be ranked by the time we play them. Navy, one of the few unbeatens left. But in this game specifically, I thought Chris Ash and that Notre Dame defense did a good job making adjustments. It was sluggish to start, but we saw Leonard Moore make plays. There was no Gabe Rubio in this game. So other guys had to step up and make plays. I'm talking about Donovan Heinisch, Boubacar Traore. These guys had to make plays, and they did. Drake Bowen, outstanding young linebacker, did a real nice job. Mayava threw 2 interceptions, and the game plan was to contain Makai Lemon. They did. 4 catches for 76 yards. That's still a good stat line, but it's not a Makai Lemon expectation stat line. He's expected to score a touchdown pretty much every week. And Mayava was turnover prone in this game. Luke Talich. Now that one was kind of a heave that Talich was able to pick off. And then Christian Gray, yeah, he had to pick. You know what? He's terrible. He is the one reason why your blood pressure goes up every week when watching this Notre Dame defense take the field. This guy covers like a lumberjack. Oh, my God. Do you see him off the line of scrimmage? His feet are so slow, and then he gets beat. I mean, did you guys see, what was it, the 59-yard touchdown that was thrown in this game? That's Christian Gray's fault right there. And he is the most unpredictable player in all of college football. And if you're a college football fan, you've known this since last year. Even if you don't follow Notre Dame, you saw him get toasted by Jeremiah Smith in the national championship game. And that just goes to show you, not to go off topic, but how bad Drew Aller really is. You couldn't take advantage of Christian Gray in the fucking semifinal. But quickly here on Notre Dame's offense, I do want to shout out the run game. You talked about meat and potatoes. I'll say it was biscuits and gravy this week. 306 rushing yards for the Irish. 3 touchdowns. USC only had 68 rushing yards and no touchdowns. The team with 306 rushing yards is probably going to win. And the team with 68 rushing yards is probably going to lose more often than not. Jeremiah Love had a big 63-yard run in this game, 228 and a score on 24 rushes. That would be his career high. I know he's rushed for a lot of yards at the University of Notre Dame over these past 3 years. I believe that was his career high. And Jadarian Price, 13 for 87 and 1 score. That's a starter stat line, guys. These two guys basically both start for them. It's kind of like a Gibbs and Montgomery in college, right? One guy gets a possession and another guy gets the next possession. They both contribute. And what makes Love so special and why he will be successful in the NFL, it's not just his patience and speed as a running back, his contributions as a blocker and as a receiver. That is something a nearby pro football team could really use when it comes to running backs. And finally, CJ Carr, not his best game, but he looked good enough to get the job done. This was a big win. A lot of pressure was on. And let's not forget, Ashton Craig is unfortunately done for the season at center. And Notre Dame lost their best interior guy, Billy Schrauth, the left guard. He sprained his MCL. He'll be out the next 3 to 4 weeks. Notre Dame, thankfully, has another bye this week, so they will not play again until next weekend. Schrauth may only miss 2 or 3 games, but Sullivan Absher at left guard and Joe Otting at center, both of them have been very, very serviceable options. And shout out Marcus Freeman. You outcoached Lincoln Riley.
There you go. Big win for the Irish. The last game I wanted to talk about for our recap, I mean, there was a ton of good games that we're not going to be able to get to all of them, obviously, but we're going to do this one. The Holy War. BYU holds on 24-21 over the Utes in Provo. Bear Bachmeier, 229 total yards of offense, threw for a touchdown, ran for another score, and they outlast Utah 24-21. LJ Martin was big on the ground, 122 yards. 3 straight victories in this rivalry for BYU for the first time since winning 4 straight from 89 to 92. This was a great uniform game, the all blue versus the all red, and it was a great football game. Devin Dampier for Utah was 240. Threw for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Daniel Bray had 121 yards and a score on 10 carries. 14 straight points given up by Utah after taking their first lead, and that was in the fourth quarter, guys. So it really, really came down to it. Both teams scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, but in the end, it wasn't enough for Utah. BYU gets the big win, and with some other results in the Big 12, Texas Tech dropping last week. With this loss with Utah, that's their second loss. BYU's 7-0, and they're 4-0 in the Big 12, and absolutely in the driver's seat of this conference. Tom, I'll kick it to you on this one. Talk to me about what you thought about this game, and then do you agree that BYU is currently, what am I trying to say here? Spit it out, loser. Jesus Christ. That BYU is the best team in the Big 12. That's what I'm asking you.
They are not. It is still Texas Tech, despite the loss. If they had Baron Morton, they probably win that game against ASU. But both teams kept the ball on the ground a lot. Each team got over 200 rushing yards. The difference, Utah had 2 turnovers. BYU had none. Kalani Sitake has done a great job with this team. I do think there's a strong chance they're in the Big 12 championship game. A playoff berth will have to come by beating Texas Tech in that game. I think Texas Tech wins out from here and still wins the Big 12. But I think the Cougars are a team that you really need to watch moving forward. They have a lot of potential. In fact, I think they're up to number 12 now. So shout out BYU.
Noah, your thoughts on this one and BYU's chances in the Big 12?
I think those chances are good. I think, like Tom said, I think it'll come down between BYU and Texas Tech, and I believe they play in 2 weeks at Texas Tech, so I think that'll probably decide the Big 12. As for this game, Guys, I think this was a classic bend but don't break performance by this Cougars defense. They gave up almost 500 yards, which when you look at that, is not very good. But they got some timely stops in this game, guys. At key momentum points as well. First Utah drive of the game goes 81 yards. They're able to get a fourth down stop, uh, inside the 10, I believe. That was a big momentum shifter for them. Later, in the second quarter, same thing. Utah is driving early in the second quarter. They're able to get another fourth down stop. That would end up being a trend as well. Getting a third quarter, 66-yard drive. They get another these are all fourth down stops, not third down stops. Utah went 1 for 5 on fourth downs. Again, classic bend but don't break. They did a great job running the ball. And at the line of scrimmage as well, even though they gave up a ton of yards, guys, they were able to get big plays when needed. They had 8 tackles for loss in this game, 3 sacks overall. And all these tackles for loss, it's spread out between players. And, there was no player that had more than one. So it was very much a team effort by that that BYU front seven in this game. Close game, I think it's kind of about what we expected, guys, for a rivalry game like this. I thought Napier looked good. Bachmar, I think, made some solid plays on the ground as well. But shout out to the running backs this game as well. Bray and Martin, they both had great games as well. Very ground and pound heavy game, this one. But BYU got the stops when they needed. And, in a close game like that, ended up being a big difference for them. Definitely in solid position for a CFP. Like I said, I think that Texas Tech game in 2 weeks will probably decide the Big 12 at this point.
Yeah, I believe the Utes outgained the Cougars on offense. They had more first downs, but they didn't have more points. A lot of fourth down stops, timely stops. I mean, that really was the game. You said it there, Noah. I want to highlight one more thing, we're going down to D3 football, boys. Curry College, Monty Quinn, the running back, set an NCAA record, 522 yards on the ground, 7 touchdowns on 20 carries. He had 8 rushes over 25 yards, including touchdown runs of 85, 84, 76, 64, 58, and 30 yards, a 71-27 victory for Curry. I wanted to highlight that because that is a hell of a day, and it fits into our narrative here the last couple games talking about insane running back performances. That one tops them all for sure. So some D3 love on the tailgate committee this week. We're going to go to our segment, and it is one that is been a theme, and one guy we've been talking about all year. They finally did it. Napier out at Florida. Florida has fired Billy Napier. 3.5 seasons, underperformance, disappointment, 22-23 record as the head coach of Florida, winning percentage of .489, the lowest for a full-time Gators coach since Raymond Wolf from 1946 to 49. Napier finishes with a 12-16 record in the SEC, also the worst since Wolf's tenure. Never was able to live up to the hype. Came in from Louisiana Lafayette. They had, had a lot of success there. 8-9 record in August and September with the Gators. Never able to get out to the fast start. Almost got fired last year. Then they ripped off the wins in the final 4 games to finish 8-5. They bring a lot of those guys back. They bring the quarterback back in DJ Lagway. Expectations really high, and boy, did they get shattered pretty quickly. Lost to South Florida at home, lost to LSU in Miami. They beat Texas, lose to Texas A&M. They do get the win over Mississippi State this weekend, but not enough. Billy Napier is fired on Sunday. They lost after winning the first game. They dropped 3 in a row, and they have lost 4 of their last 6 games. Not a recipe for success. This is the 4th straight football coach that Florida has fired during a season since Urban Meyer stepped down in 2010. None of the 4 coaches made it to 50 games at the school. How crazy is that? Will Muschamp, Dan Mullen, both coached 49, McElwain 34, and Napier 39. Napier's buyout, I'm sure everybody's curious. $21 million, according to USA Today. This is an article, by the way, from Sports Illustrated that I'm referencing here. Little bit better than the $50 million that James Franklin has owned, but $21 million is still a pretty penny. Noah, I think I have to start with you on this one. Obviously, you said it. We're not celebrating anybody get fired, but any chance you have to point and laugh at Florida Gators fans, I'm sure you will take full advantage of. So give me your thoughts on this. I mean, I don't think any of us are going to – I don't even want to say, is this the right move? Because I think all of us will just say yes. But about time, I guess is what we should say.
Yeah, with Billy, it was one of those things. It was kind of it was a matter of when, not if. I think that run they had at the end of last season kind of really masked a lot of problems. This Florida team has, because we got to remember, guys. Billy was getting massive, firing chance. Calls for him to lose his job last season as well, and that streak they went on towards the end. Silenced that for a bit, but it very quickly came back this year. And like, I'm not going to dump on him too hard because, like you said, you never really root for someone to lose their job, but you can't say it's undeserved. He's basically had one good year, and the rest have all been, pretty bad. Let's be honest. And I will say this, by the way, this is the risk you take, guys, when you hire a Group 5 coach. I'm not saying it can never work, but it's very much a boom or bust thing, right? You're taking a chance on a guy, in comparison to an established guy, because that's what they did with Dan Mullen, right? He was great with Mississippi State for years, 10-win teams or whatever. They bring him in, and kind of did the same with Florida. The problem that Florida has, guys, is, it's not even really on the field, I think, although obviously coaching has not been up to snuff. Their problem is their boosters, their board or whatever, they're just a total train wreck. I mean, they fired Dan Mullen after one bad year. It wasn't just because they had a bad year. It was because no one there could stand him. Because I don't know the entire picture. I don't think anyone does really, because they're not going to advertise it. But I think he was the kind of guy to tell someone if they were saying something that was bullshit, that it was bullshit. And I don't think they like that. Dan Mullen's very much, he'll say it how it is, regardless if it's a good decision or not. He's not someone that filters himself by any means. Billy, on the other hand, I think was a guy that he's a very nice guy. Like, he's definitely one of those guys you'd want to have dinner with, have a good chat with. But he was never SEC level coach. And, I think the reason he lasted so long was because he just had such a great personality. I don't think his players disliked him or anything. I think, he did win over that locker room. But again, it doesn't matter how much your players love you, how great a recruiter you are. If you can't win on the field, if you can't coach on the field, you can't make, play calls. They've had a lot of staff of people as well. It's not really going to matter. Yeah, I will say this. It's not the wrong decision to fire him, but I thought it was kind of stupid they did after he won a game. Like, why didn't you do it last week? Why don't you do it when they lose? They probably, let's be honest, they're losing this week probably. Why don't you do it after that? Why did you lose after you won a game? I did not understand that part. But yeah, it was the right decision. I do still think he can get a job somewhere in college football, whether it's, as a Group 5 coach or as a coordinator. But, sadly, the past few years from it has shown he's not quite cut out for a job of this caliber, guys.
Yeah, and you pretty much hit on every point there. Tom, I'll throw it up to you. Not a surprising move. Do you agree with Noah that it didn't really make sense to do it at this point? I know they have a bye week coming up. So if you were to do it, I guess, let the interim coach have a bye week to kind of set his stuff up. By the way, interim head coach is Billy Gonzalez, the receivers coach, one-time co-offensive coordinator at Illinois. His son, Cole Gonzalez, was in my brother's class at St. Matthew's Elementary School for 1 year, and Cole is now a quarterback at Pitt. Always got connections here, dude.
Wow.
Always making shit work. They probably wouldn't remember who we were at all, but as soon as I saw that name, I was like, I know exactly who that is. So Tom, your thoughts on Napier and getting ousted, the $21 million buyout, obviously a big thing here as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, they fired him after a win, but They also had a game-sealing takeaway when Mississippi State was in field goal range, I believe. So it's not like they were controlling that game. Mississippi State slipped up and gift wrapped it for Florida to win. If that doesn't happen, 2-5. You could argue that if they lose that game, and if they don't play the Division I FCS LIU, 1-6. So it's not like they've beaten world beaters this year, guys. Again, $21 million, and half of that due within the first 30 days. It's still a lot of money. Yeah, it's not Franklin territory, but yeah, it's bad. Under 500 in 4 years. And we mentioned this, right? The timing is odd because there's a bye week and then there's the Georgia game. You know they are not beating Georgia. I like that Wolf stat too. That was kind of funny. But the whole thing I take away from this is, how does the team get better in the second half of this season, right? How does the team get better from that? You are in the meat of SEC play. You don't have your leader. If your team is bad, like, it's just one of those things where, I mean, their expectations weren't exactly high this year, right? Like Penn State, they had every reason to make that move when they did because they were just getting embarrassed. And when they knew his ceiling was reached. With Florida, it's a little different. Yeah, he deserves to get fired, but I would have waited till the end of the season. The timing here just isn't adding up to me. Damn. It's just the repeated penalties, the clock mismanagement, Lagway, the way he looks lost in the pocket, the offense struggling to move the football. This is all on Billy Napier. That's why he got fired. So in that sense, it's not a surprise. It's just the timing. He sealed his fate last week. Remember, he dialed up that back rollout on a 3rd and 1 in the waning minutes that led to a punt. And Mississippi State, he gave them a chance. Also, let's talk about the quarterback keeper on 3rd and 7. Terrible. And then he botches the final possession before halftime, right? And he was flagged for having 12 men on the field during a 2-point try. That's all on the head coach. You could blame it. I mean, offensive coordinator, offensive lineman, ineligible, check. I don't give a crap. He's had 4 years to figure this out, and the team looks like they just got out of school. Goodbye, Billy Napier.
Yeah, it's just little things like that. You can't beat yourselves. You take 1 step forward and 2 steps back a lot of the times with that kind of stuff. And yeah, it just Lagway. He said, "I'm a Florida Gator" when they were asked about him, his chances of transferring. I'm sure he is as good as gone. I'm sure most of the roster is gone. You are right about the Mississippi State game, Tom. They almost gave that away. Mississippi State was still throwing when really they just needed to run the ball. And I think they were already in field goal range too. And Blake Shapen threw an interception to a defensive lineman. So you got bailed out there, but either way, Florida gets the win. We're going to talk about who they might hire next, but I want to pose this question to both of you. Added to the list of the available jobs, Florida and now Colorado State have joined the chat. Is Florida the best available job in college football? Would you put Florida's over Penn State if you were a head coach? Noah, I'll start with you.
Absolutely not. I'm going to be honest. Not only do I not think this is the best job opening, I think this job opening fucking sucks. I would not take this job with a 20-foot pole. And here's why. Because, again, they've been so bad for so long. They're in the SEC. It's the toughest conference. The expectations. I have seen Florida fans constantly. These have got to be some of the most delusional fair weather fans I have ever seen in my life. Because what do they do? I've seen this for so long, guys. When they hire Billy Napier, I have to listen to all these Florida fans I know, and unfortunately I know a lot of them, beating their chest. Oh, my God, we got Billy Napier. This is the best hire ever. He's done so well for this UL team, which I've never watched a single game of in my life. He's going to be so good for us. And then 2 years later, it's the same old story. Oh my God, Billy Napier is fucking awful. Can we please fire this guy? And then he wins 4 games, and then he's great again. Then he sucks the next year, and then they hate him again, and then he eventually gets fired. And then, like I said, guys, you also have to deal with these terrible ass boosters who, think they know more football than these coaches that have been, coaching football for decades, basically their entire life. They built that giant, I don't remember exactly what it is, but one of my Florida fan buddies mentioned a few years ago, they built some giant, state-of-the-art facilities, to help their players, whatever, to be a recruiting pitch or whatever. And yeah, they are great at recruiting. The problem is the players they recruit disappear on the field, so it doesn't really matter too much. No, I do not think this job is attractive. And by the way, I got to say, I want what some of these Florida fans are smoking to think they still have the legacy to just be able to easily hire coaches like Drinkwitz or Lane Kiffin. Why would these guys take downgrade jobs to go to a team with higher expectations? Ole Miss and Missouri are way better places to coach right now than Florida. Not only because their teams are better. I mean, that's not even a debate. I mean, even debating that is just outright delusional. But there's less pressure. There's so much. Yeah, you might have more to work with at Florida, but you don't have any. The pressure is like 100 times bigger. No, I don't even think it's an attractive job, guys. If I'm a coach, you avoid this with a 100-foot pole, man.
Tom, do you agree?
And the food's not attractive. I 100% agree. No, remember when we went to Joe's Pizza down in Florida? That's a New York chain. That's not even Florida. That's not even real Florida. It's a New York recipe in the damn state of Florida. Don't take this job. Yeah, look, I'm not going to go as crazy as Noah, despite my hype up there. But yeah, I think they're 3 or 4 on my list right now. They're nowhere close to ready to competing in the SEC again. They're not a middle-of-the-pack SEC team. They are a bottom feeder. They're officially a bottom feeder, the SEC. They are one of the worst teams in the conference, despite their win over Texas. But if they hire the right guy, you could see this program turn around in 3 to 5 years. The next 2 to 3 years, they're going to be really bad, really bad. Those are growing pains. You have to rebuild this entire program because where it is now, if you hire one of these other guys, right, you're going to be stuck in mediocrity. You're going to be stuck in a 6-7 win territory where you don't want to be, right? You want to be winning 9, maybe 10 games. It's the SEC. And it fluctuates year by year. There's your 3 or 4 teams that are always good. And then there's a few more in the middle of the pack, take the road that Vanderbilt took. I can't believe I'm saying this, that Florida should take a page out of Vanderbilt, a team that is not known for their football for so long. But if we're honest with each other, it is not the best available job in college football. It's between the 2 that we talked about last week. I went with, I believe it was Oklahoma State and then Penn State. I kind of threw a dig there at the Penn State AD. But yeah, look, I don't see Florida as being this attractive job, mainly because of the situation, the food, the recruits, and just all in all, everything. Georgia is so much better.
There we go.
Beautiful. There it is.
We're
waiting for that one.
Brewing.
But yeah, I mean, Noah, you brought up an interesting point. Why would Lane Kiffin or Eli Drinkwitz want to go there and completely start over and rebuild when they did that at Ole Miss and Missouri, respectively, and now they have those programs at a better point than Florida? Yeah, I just don't understand unless the paycheck, money talks. Money talks. So we'll see what they offer. But that brings us into our next conversation regarding this. Who should they hire? Who are the candidates? Who would you guys hire if you were the AD at Florida? So Drinkwitz is been rumored. Lane Kiffin has been rumored. James Franklin has entered the chat. Boys, do they go with him? This USA Today article has Dan Lanning at Oregon. There's no fucking way he's leaving Oregon for Florida. Kenny Dillingham is listed here at Arizona State. I don't know. Well, maybe. John Summerall at Tulane. That's a realistic name, in my opinion. Rhett Lashley at SMU. This one also has Urban Meyer. We've talked about him coaching on this show before. I don't think he has any reason to do that. Kurt Signetti is still out there. I know he signed that extension, boys, but his buyout is only $15 million if he were to leave voluntarily. That is not a crazy number for a school like Florida to pay, and you never know. But, Tom, I'll start with you. Is there a candidate you have in mind for this job? Who would you go with if you were the AD at Florida?
Well, there's three guys. One you mentioned, I think Dillingham would take that step up to try to get into the SEC. I think he would try Arkansas first because why not be a hog? But I think that's a guy who could be a potential good fit there. You look at what he's done with ASU. Jeff from Louisville is another guy that is interesting, right? If you want an SEC pay grade instead of an ACC pay, you take that. Florida has more NIL resources than Louisville does. We know they've generated some awesome recruits and that the ACC is wide open. You think, well, why might he want to leave that job? Money talks. If Florida throws him money, it's kind of hard to turn down. And the outlier, I mentioned this last week. We were talking about who would be a good fit for the Penn State job. Somebody mentioned Alex Flesh as like a dark horse. If he's moving, I think he's moving up north to Gainesville. I know that's a bit of a reach because of how young he is and how inexperienced he is. But remember, he cut his teeth with Josh Heupel. He was his OC for a while at UCF and then Tennessee. So, and look what he's done at USF. 20-13 record for USF. We're talking here in the American Conference. Now, they are the G5 frontrunner to make the CFP. If this guy brings USF to the CFP, possibly wins a game or keeps them close, I'd 100% tag this guy up in a heartbeat. All in all, I would have to say I'm leaning towards trying to give Jeff Brom a call. I really like what he's done at Louisville. He's beaten teams that he's not supposed to beat, right? I mean, I don't think any of us thought Louisville was going to beat Miami last week. I sure didn't.
For sure. So Jeff Brom is a name to watch. Alex Galesh, another name to watch. I mean, Alex Galesh knows how to win in the swamp, boys. Noah, let's go down to you. Who do you hire if you're Florida? I actually think if you had it your way, Billy Napier would still be the coach.
Yeah, I'd give him a 10-year extension, guys, to coach as long as he wants. But I would not hire Lane. That might be a hot take. I know he's kind of the hot guy. I don't think Lane is a bad coach. I think he's a very good coach. But Lane, again, guys, he's another one of those guys. I think he falls into that very good but not great category. His record in big games is not good. And he's a coach that he's very much about Lane, right? Like he is very, I'm not saying this in a truly negative way, but he's self-centered. Like objectively, he's just a self-centered guy. He loves the attention. Remember, get your popcorn ready before they went out and got blown out by Alabama by like 35 points or whatever, one of the most embarrassing results of the season. That's who he is. And I think, like I said, with the profile of this Florida job, how high pressure it is, you know, how demanding that fan base and those boosters are, I think it would be it would either go very well or it would be a total train wreck. I think there'd be very little in between. I think it's a boom or bust hire when people are saying it's the obvious pick. I don't really think it is. If I had to pick an SEC coach, I would go Drinkwitz over Kiffin easily. I think what he's done to rebuild that Missouri team has been remarkable. They had a bit of a down stretch since they lost, who was it, Gary Pinkel, I think it was. But he's got that, team. They're very good. He's shown he can rebuild a program up from, a pretty low standing. I think he's a much safer hire in my opinion. I think he's a very high. This article even says it, high floor hire, excuse me, for the Gators. Now, whether or not those guys would leave, again, I know the argument. Those are, oh, they can just pay whatever they want. That is true. At the same time, I wouldn't exactly say programs like Ole Miss and Missouri are, poverty or whatever, have no money to pay coaches or whatsoever. I mean, they had to pay Lane to get in there from FAU in the first place. The problem I have with picking a guy for Florida, right, is that we've seen that they've tried both approaches and it hasn't worked. They tried the up and coming coach Napier, it didn't work. They tried the experienced, safe hire, if you will, with Van Mullen, and it didn't work. They fired him too. So I don't think they're going to go with a guy like an Alex Galesh. Even though I do think that would be a good move for them. I think they're going to go with a more experienced guy. Dan Lanning's a pipe dream. Me personally, I think the three that are the most possible are Lashley. That's one that was mentioned. Summerall, which I think one of you guys already touched on, and Dillingham. I think those are jobs that going from those three programs to Florida is a step up, despite all the problems that surround that job. Uh, but I don't think they're going to get one of the SEC guys. Dan Lanning's a pipe dream, and Urban Meyer, he's never coaching again. The way that his Jacksonville tenure Indian guys was a total disaster, basically tarnished what little reputation he had left. Plus, he's got that fine TV job. Why would he want to come out of retirement? He's already proven all he can pretty much his coaching career. Why would you come out of retirement to come back to this? No chance.
Correct. That is the correct take. So quickly, before we go into our recap, I want us to each give a quick prediction here. Who's next out of the three of these guys will be the next one to get fired? Mike Norvell, Hugh Freeze, or Bill Belichick? According to coacheshotseat.com, number one is Mike Norvell, number two is Hugh Freeze, and number three is Bill Belichick. So your top three hottest seats, which one of these guys lasts or is the next domino to fall? I saw this tweet that I thought was really funny that I had to share. This is from @a_David_Hale_Joint on Twitter. You know what's crazy? Last week, a coach at a Florida State school was fired, and a coach named Norvell was fired, and neither were Mike Norvell, who, thanks to what's happening with the Dolphins, still probably doesn't have the hottest seat of a coach named Mike in the state of Florida. That is a phenomenal tweet, David Hale_Joint, for sure. So, Noah, real quick, out of the three guys I mentioned, who's the next guy to fall? Norvell, Hugh Freeze, or Bill Belichick?
Well, first of all, I'll just say I don't think it's Belichick. It's his first year there. They put a lot of investment into getting him there, and let's be honest, it's going to be sunk cost fallacy, guys. They're going to believe that Bill Belichick can turn it around, even if more bad results pop up. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. I think it's really between Freeze and Norvell. And I'm kind of leaning Freeze barely. I think you can make an argument for both, but the reason I would say Freeze is, at least with Norvell, you can say he has some credit in the bank. He's had some good seasons there. They had that season where they went, undefeated in the regular season. Probably should have made the CFP, but didn't because Jordan Travis got injured. They had a really good year before that as well. They had a disaster year last year, and they're falling off this season. But at least with Norvell, you can say there has been some good there. I think Hugh Freeze at Auburn has just been consistently mediocre at best. I mean, he's on course for his third straight losing season. Auburn is not a program that is going to tolerate that for a very long time. They'll tolerate it to a certain extent, but they're not going to take 4 or 5 years of losing seasons or whatever and accept that. They have much higher expectations than that, as they should, by the way, for a program. As much as I hate them, obviously, or a program of their standing and tradition, that's not going to cut it. So, in my opinion, if Hugh Freeze has another losing season this year, which, let's be honest, I really expect him to, he better be polishing up that resume, guys, because I don't think he'll be in a job anymore.
Tom, Mike Norvell, Hugh Freeze, or Jordan Hudson's boyfriend?
Oh, that's good. I like that one. Here's where I stand on this. Belichick, no. I think that's more for clicks, in my opinion. Norvell, Bell, there's a rumor going around that he is safe until at least the end of the season. It will not be an in-season hire for Mike Norvell, and I do happen to believe that. However, things do change week by week. It's going to be Hugh Freeze, and it's going to be soon. They are at Arkansas this week. If they lose to Arkansas and fall to 0-5 in the SEC, he's gone. And he's going up against Bobby Petrino and that interim Arkansas staff, some of them. And, yeah, I don't see them getting it done there. I think Arkansas wins that game outright, and I think Hugh Freeze is gone at this time next week.
Maybe Hugh Freeze will be the next one we talk about, but that seems to be the consensus here from the tailgate committee, folks. Taylon Green looked good last week for Arkansas. Bobby Trino's hungry. He wants that Arkansas job, so he's going to have the boys ready to play. Let's go to our six-pack. This is the six-pack, our Week 9 six-pack, our preview of the 6 games we think you should be keeping an eye on. We'll start off 11 a.m. on ABC. Number 8, Ole Miss looking to bounce back, going to number 13, Oklahoma. Noah, I'll start with you. John Napier and the Sooners, or Trinidad Chambliss and the Rebels.
Tough game. I think these two teams have very strong strengths and very weak weaknesses. And what I mean by that, guys, is Oklahoma's defense is the best in all of college football statistically. They give up the least yards per game. They only give up 9.4 points per game, second in the country, I assume, behind only Ohio State. They're top 5 against the rush and the pass. They can pretty much do it all defensively, which is a big credit to how quickly Brent Venables has turned over the defense since Lincoln Riley left. The other side for Ole Miss, it's their offense. So strength against strength, Ole Miss has a top 10 offense. But then on the other hand, Ole Miss's defense is not very good, and Oklahoma's offense has kind of struggled this season. However, I think a large part of the reason for Oklahoma's struggle, and you mentioned him, Andy, is the fact that John Napier was injured for a good bit. That's the main reason they lost the Texas game, like 23-6, I believe it was because of that injury. But he's back now, and I'm going to assume he's pretty raring to go. This game is at Memorial Stadium as well, which I think is always a big advantage. I'm going to roll with the Sooners in this one. I do think it'll be a good game. The spread is 5.5. I think that's about right. I'm going to pick the Sooners to win this game by 4 points.
Oklahoma by 4 for the old boy. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Napier and Blaylock will run well. They'll keep the ball out of the hands of Trinidad Chambliss. I think R. Mason Thomas will apply pressure on him. And then if you look defensively for the Sooners, you have to contain Kawan Muncie, a guy who has 10 touchdowns on the year. And here's the key factor. The Sooners defense gives up on average 9.5 points per game this season. That's it. That is second best in the nation. They're at home. Give me Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is the pick. I'm going to be different. I'm going to go Ole Miss. I think they bounce back. I think they're pissed off after having that game in Georgia up by 2 scores and letting it slip through their fingers. Give me Lane and the Rebels. Let's move on. USF and Memphis, a huge G5 game. How about Memphis, by the way? They got upset by UAB last week. UAB comes out. They had just fired Trent Dilfer. Chris Mortensen's son was the is the interim coach. And Alex Mortensen, I think his name is. And he gets the job done. They knock off Memphis. That is a huge blow to Memphis's CFP chances. Could they have been looking ahead to this one with USF and overlooked the Blazers? But they absolutely have to have this one now to make a statement. Tom, I'll start with you. Alex Galesh's team ranked 18th in the country. They are going to Memphis. How do you see this one shaking out?
Well, this is a college football playoff eliminator, this game. Whoever loses is done. Memphis, the UAB loss is really bad, but as we saw last year with teams like Notre Dame, you can have a bad loss and get in and make a run. So if they're perfect and somehow win the American, in my opinion, they're at home. USF is favored by 4.5. They're going to have to contain Brendan Lewis, their quarterback, 7 rushing touchdowns, 8 passing. And that Memphis defense is tough. They forced 17 takeaways this year. So Byron Brown have to take good care of the football. I think the Bulls, they run the ball better. Alex Golesh's team will continue to improve their resume. And as said by the legendary Mark Cohn, USF will be walking in Memphis.
USF walking in Memphis. What a reference. Noah, do you agree? Do you have the Bulls? Do you like the Tigers? What's going on?
Another tough game, guys. I mean, it's 2 6-1 teams. I think it's going to come down to which team exploits these defensive weaknesses better. Because if we look, you guys, Memphis is really not good at defending the pass, but neither is USF. Excuse me. In fact, USF is bottom 5 pretty much. They're 125th against the pass, which I think that's an advantage for Memphis because Brendan Lewis, I think, is a really good player. Same for Byron Brown, but I don't know. I have a bit more faith, I guess, if you will, in Brendan Lewis running or passing the football. Excuse me. Byron Brown's more of a dual threat type of guy. It's really tough, but I will say I have seen some weaknesses with Memphis. You mentioned the UAB loss last week, Andy. That was a game they really shouldn't have lost. And a few weeks before that as well, they barely beat Arkansas by 1 in a game that I remember that one, where South Florida has had some big moments this season. I think I have a little bit more faith in this one to win this one. I think it'll be close. Spread is 4.5. I'm going to go under that. I'm going to take USF by a field goal.
Yeah, give me the Bulls in this one as well. They're the more proven team here, but I think we have an absolute shootout on our hands. The question for me is, can USF take care of the football? We saw in that big game against North Texas, they turned the ball over 3 times very early, and they were able to bounce back. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that again, or I wouldn't count on being able to do that every game. Right, this Memphis offense is really good, and I'm looking for the USF defense. Can they get to the quarterback and make his life a little difficult? But yeah, give me USF. I think they're more proven to this point, and I think Galesh is a man on a mission at this point to get them to the college football playoff along with Byron Brown. So let's move to the SEC, a big one. Game day going to be there. Mizzou, number 15, Mizzou going to Nashville, and top 10 Vanderbilt. Number 10, Vandy, hosting the Tigers, 2:30 on ESPN. Noah, let's go to you, the SEC head of the group. Mizzou, do they have a chance to knock off Pavia and the Commodores in this game?
They do have a chance. And by the way, can I just say this? The fact that I just had to hear number 10 Vanderbilt a strike to the senses. But like I said earlier, guys, they have earned it. They've been excellent this season. But so is Missouri. I mean, I've been saying all year. They've been my dark horse for a reason. They're 6-1. Honestly, the Bama game is very close as well. A couple things go their way. They could be 7-0, but they're a deserved 6-1 in my opinion. I think it's going to come down to once again to the strengths and weaknesses. 2 juggernauts here, and what I mean by that, Missouri defense is elite, particularly against the rushing attack. But Vanderbilt are no slouches running the ball, guys. They're averaging over 200 yards per game. They're a very balanced offense as well. They're no slouches passing it either. But Missouri as well has a top 10 offense too, so I think they're a very well-rounded team. In my opinion, this is going to come down to how well is the Missouri defense going to be able to slow down the Vols' rushing attack. Because, guys, this Missouri defense only gives up 79.9 yards per game. That's good for 3rd in the entire country. I think for Missouri, if they can slow this Vanderbilt rushing attack down, try and keep Pavia contained, because you're never going to shut him down how elusive he is, but try and keep him contained. Force him to try and beat you with his arm. I think Vanderbilt has a good shot to win that game if they do this, and I think they will. I'm actually going Vanderbilt's actually the betting favorite. I'm going to go with the upset in this one. Vanderbilt is ranked number 10, but it's going to last all of 1 week because Missouri will win this game, and they will be in the top 10 next week because they are the best Tiger team in the SEC.
Oh, Missouri the best Tiger team in the SEC, according to the old boy, and he thinks they get the upset this week against Vanderbilt. Tom, do you agree with Noah, or are you going the other way?
Yeah, look, Mizzou been impressive. Only loss was to Bama by 3. However, Pibula has turned it over a bit the last couple of weeks. Ahmad Hardy has slowed down a little after his fast and hot start. If Vanderbilt's going to win this game, though, they have to contain tight end Ben Norfleet over the middle of the field. 5 touchdown reception on the year. He catches 1 touchdown per every 5 receptions. Diego Pavia for the Commodores will have to have a good game. He looked solid last week. He's a dual threat, 15 touchdown passes to just 4 picks. That's an awesome ratio. And then you have 438 yards on the ground and 4 scores. How do you contain? And if you do, then you got to deal with his arm. You got Junior Sherrill, who got 5 scores, and then you got a top-rated tight end, and Eli Stowers over the middle of the field. It's going to be very, very challenging. Vanderbilt is ranked 10th for a reason. I'm going the other way. Commodores win at home.
I am going to go with Tommy Boy on this one. Give me Vandy. But for Missouri, it's going to – I mean, if you control Pavia, like you said, Noah, if you put a spy on him and you prevent him from beating you with his legs – you're going to be in a good position. Pavia is their leading rusher on the year. Can Pribula take care of the ball? And could Hardy get loose as well? Those will be big things to watch for me. Let's go to the Big 12 for our next game. This is a big one in the Big 12. BYU 7-0, number 12 in the Big 12. Going to Iowa State, up to Ames, 5-2 for the Cyclones. This could be a get, one that you hope BYU is not overlooking. You know, they have Texas Tech coming up. This could be a big one for Iowa State to shake some things up in the conference. There's a lot of teams with only 1 loss in conference play, and I'm sure they would all love to see BYU drop this one. Tom, we'll start with you. Bear Bachmeier and the Cougars going up to take on Rocco Becht and the Cyclones. How do you see this one shaking out?
Well, the Cyclones are coming off back-to-back losses. It's going to be tough to recover. They lost at Colorado last week. And then you got BYU, a team that is coming all hot against went over Utah. You cannot go back down to earth in this game and play to the level that Iowa State has been playing. Remember, since they started the season out in Ireland, they got off to that 5-0 start. We all thought, wow, Iowa State's Big 12 contender. Could not be further from the truth. They are not a good football team right now. They're turning the ball over, and BYU is just a superior team here. The fact that Iowa State is favored by 2.5 after back-to-back losses is insane to me. The Cougars will lean on L.J. Martin and Bear Bachmeier, who has 9 touchdown passes and 8 touchdown rushes. And their defense is captained over their patroller in the middle. Jack Kelly, the linebacker, has 5 sacks on the year. He will be playing on Sundays next year. And BYU will be going into the top 10 after this win.
BYU getting the win on the road is the prediction for Tom. Noah, do you like the Cougar? Well, we know you like Cougars, but do you like the BYU Cougars or do you like the ISU Cyclones?
I do. I agree with Tom on this one. I believe that, first of all, Iowa State is basically, I don't want to say in free fall, but they're definitely going on a skid, losing in their last 2 games. Rocco Becht has thrown 3 interceptions his last 4 games, I believe. Although, to be fair, Bachmeier has basically done the same in the last couple of games as well with his turnovers. However, the key for me in this one, guys, is this Iowa State rushing and defense is pretty mid. And when you have a mid-rushing defense, you do not want to face a team that has a guy like L.J. Martin, and especially Bear Bachmeier, who is a guy that loves making plays with his feet. I think that would be a big advantage for them in this one. And like Tom said, BYU is the underdog. I'm not really sure why, especially on what we've seen lately. I know BYU has had some close results, but Iowa State has lost 2 straight games. So don't really get that one, but it's not going to matter because BYU will win this game outright. And I agree with Tom. They will go in the top 10. And though, once again, like I said earlier, they're going to cement themselves, I think, in a good position. That Texas Tech game is going to decide the Big 12.
Yeah, so I'm going to be a little different. I don't know why Iowa State's favored by 2.5, so that's exactly why I'm going to take them. Las Vegas knows more than I do, apparently, but they defend their home turf and get a big win and knock BYU down a peg. I am a little bit worried because LJ Martin might just run wild all over that defense, but let's go to the Big Ten and my team. The Illinois Fighting Illini are back this week after the bye, going up to Washington to take on the Huskies. Washington is 4.5-point favorites in the game. You got to watch out for Demon Williams Jr., 1,837 yards, 10 touchdowns, only 4 picks on the year. He can hurt you with his legs as well. Jonah Coleman, a very, very solid running back in the backfield for them. Illinois is going to have to take care of the ball. Don't make any mistakes on special teams. Don't beat yourself. And I think we can win this game. Let's get Hank Beatty the ball. Let's get Justin Bowick the ball in the red zone. Somebody's going to have to take charge in this backfield, whether it's Caden Fagan, is it Aiden Lawfrey, Khalil Valentine got banged up last week. All of them should be ready to go for this game. You guys know what I'm doing. You guys know where I'm going with this. Give me the Illini in Seattle over Washington. Keep those playoff hopes alive. Noah, what do you think about this one in the Big Ten? And don't you disappoint me.
Yeah, another tough game to pick, guys. On the road as well at Husky Stadium. You know what? This Washington team, guys, ever since that Ohio State loss, they've had some respectable wins, but then they got absolutely, beaten decisively, shall we say, in their last game against Michigan. Whereas Illinois, it's been, other than that Indiana loss, I think they had a good season. Ohio State game, again, that was just, timing moments. Ohio State kept making plays and they didn't. But overall, I do still have, in my opinion, I still think that Illinois is overall the better, more complete team. Altmaier is really good, like really good, guys. Like he is so efficient. Again, only 1 interception all season, and that came against the best defense in our entire country, probably by a wide margin as well. I think it's going to come down to the superstar receivers as well. Denzel Boston for Washington, and you already mentioned him, Andy Hank Beatty for Illinois. But overall, I think Illinois is a more complete team. They are the underdogs in this game. Again, not really sure why, and definitely not really sure why they're 4.5-point underdogs. By the way, give me Illinois outright by 7.
And Noah is going with the Illini in this one. Tom, what do you think? Huskies or Illini up in Seattle?
Yeah, look, it's a tough game, right? It's a road game for Illinois. They're coming off that loss to Ohio State. They're going to be re-energized, refocused. Brett Bielema is a good coach. Jed Fish, though, you cannot overlook him and his team. Ever since Kalen DeBoer left Washington, I think Fish has done a good job with that program. They have an outstanding running back in Jonah Coleman, who has 14 touchdowns already this year. It is very tough to stop him, especially in the red zone. And Denzel Boston, who's been a Husky since the days of Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, guys like that. He's been around, and he's a leader. 6 scores on the year. Illinois' defense will be challenged. Luke Altmaier, road game, Big Ten game. Valentine, Fagan, those guys will have to play well. I like Illinois to win outright as well, which I know is the kiss of death. So you may want to hammer Washington if you're watching this, but I just think Illinois is the better football team, and maybe also I don't want to disappoint Andy.
That's right. That's right. Can't disappoint me. Well, but all right, we're going Illinois, all 3 of us in this one. Hopefully they don't disappoint me. That's the big thing. Let's wrap up our 6-pack and get close to wrapping up the show. Texas A&M, number 3. Texas A&M 7-0, 4-0 in the SEC, they're going to LSU. Excuse me, going to Baton Rouge to take on the Tigers. Tom, is Brian Kelly's squad able to bounce back in this one, or are they on their way to sitting at 5-3 and a losing record in the SEC at 2-3?
Yeah, LSU is home. They are desperate for a win. You know, good quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, who's underachieved a bit this year for his standards. And I think part of that is the play calling. It's sort of out of his control in a way. I don't think their play calling is good, and I think that's holding him back. So for LSU, it was just announced that Ashton Stamps has left the team this week, is set to transfer. So that is not good for LSU, and it is not good for Brian Kelly. You hope he's the first and only one to do that this year. And a big reason why the play calling stinks for LSU is they can't run the football. Caden Durham is the only option in the run game, and even he's average. So with Whit Weeks being doubtful too on defense, again, it'll be very tough. For A&M, Marcel Reed has been awesome. Still top 5, top 6 in the high discussion, in my opinion. I know he's not a top 3 guy right now, but he's definitely up there. He's in that next few on the outside looking in that category. Ruben Owens will get the bulk of the carries. Le'Veon Moss is out for the Aggies. He will not play. So that is one key factor to note in the team. They still have Mario Craver and KC Concepcion, guys that can score touchdowns, run for big yardage. I look at Craver's stats all week, and I look at his catches compared to his yardage. It is so impressive what he's able to do in space and after contact. His yak is astronomically good. Then you got Cassius Howell with 8 sacks, who will challenge that Tigers offensive line. The bottom line is this, and I hate to make this comparison, but I'm going to. If Marcus Freeman couldn't do it, what makes you think Brian Kelly can? Give me the Aggies.
Noah, Aggies or Tigers?
Well, look, Tom said it earlier. This LSU team is cooked. Stick a fork in them. I mean, at this point, and that's actually a good point that Tom made at the end there. I didn't even link that together, but this A&M team, was able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat in that Notre Dame game, and LSU has been anemic this season, guys, particularly offensively, which is so strange because you thought that would be their strength, but they just cannot run the ball whatsoever, which inherently affects their passing game as well. I think their defense is better, but they're going up against a very strong offense in this one as well, who can, run the ball, who can pass as well. Marcel Reed, I think, is a stud. Mario Craver, who Tom mentioned, is just an animal, and he's going to be craving the ball in this game as well against this struggling LSU team. But yeah, guys, I just don't think this LSU team has any identity. I will say it is at Death Valley. That could maybe play an advantage for them. That crowd is always tough to play. But A&M is number 3 for a reason. We'll see at the end of the season there. I think they still have some tough games left, but I do think they will pull this one out. I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means, but I expect A&M to not only win, I think they'll cover the 2.5. I'm going to pick A&M to win this game by 6.
A&M wins by 6. Yeah, I thought I was going to be really smart and say, well, A&M went into Notre Dame and won, and they were just fine. So you think they're afraid of going into Death Valley? But Tom, that's why we keep Tommy around. He's real sharp. Got to be quicker than that. But yeah, give me the Aggies in this one. They are trending in the right direction. LSU trending in the absolute wrong direction. I will say they're, like you said, Noah, they're at home. It's a tough place to play, and they are desperate right now. Like this is a season that's on the brink. I think earlier both of you guys said their season is over. Put a fork in them. They're done. They have to have this win if they want to feel, good about themselves at all and keep themselves in any sort of conversation for postseason play. Well, obviously not. They one more win for a bowl game, but postseason play as far as the college football playoff. But yeah, we're all in lockstep on this one. Give me Texas A&M. I love Marcel Reed. Even though I didn't pick him as the Heisman dark horse. Sorry. No, I will not have any stolen valor for that. I know you will let me hear about it, but let's go ahead and lock this thing up, fellas. Give me your lock of the week. I lost once again last week. Fucking Miami. I guess I just give them the kiss of death. So Tom, I think you won again?
Yeah, I won. Unlike you, won once again last week. I had to throw the salt in the wound there, Andy.
Unnecessary. So I'll let you go again. Mr. Winner over here.
Thank you. Oh man, I'm gonna go a little different. I'm gonna go with points this week. I'm gonna go in the American game of the week. USF Memphis over 62.5. This seems like this has offense written all over to it. I will credit for Andy with the assist saying that during his picks. So if it does hit, I'll give him maybe a little credit on next week's show. So I am looking to go, what is it, 8-1 now this year? I'm currently 7-1. So
You're 7-1.
Trying to get to 8, trying to get to 8-1.
And you are in the top 4, I think, or you're only like 4 games back of our
I have
college
in 4th
pick'em
place.
pool in 4th place. So good for you, Tommy. He's hot in college football this year. Noah, did you win last week?
I did.
Let's
I'm
go.
totally honest. I don't even remember who I picked or what the game was, but I remember I looked it up for the show, and I saw the team I picked won by 2. So there you go. But Andy, you weren't here for this, but off camera, during the jump cut, Tom was calling me out, man. He said, "Do you have another relevant game this week?" And I'm not going to tolerate that level of disrespect from Tom, because I would not say a team like Miami is not irrelevant. I've got my eye on the Red Hawks this week in a key match game, man. 2 3-0 teams in the MAC. This is major MACtion ramifications on the line. Miami of Ohio against Western Michigan. I got to tell you what, guys, the Finn at quarterback, he's going to finish this game off. They got Cam Perry, their star wide receiver with his glasses. He's going to have his eye on the secondary at all times. Trick at linebacker. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve. And I'll tell you what, this Blakey guy in the secondary, he's going to achy, Blakey, breaky this Bronco offense's hearts. Give me the Red Hawks in this one.
Clip it.
That's getting clipped for sure. Shout out to my guy Davis Wall at the University of Miami, Ohio. The Red Hawks is the pick from Noah. I am taking Alabama minus 12.5 against South Carolina. I'm giving them the kiss of death this week. I think they beat the shit out of South Carolina. And if they don't, we get to watch Alabama lose to the Gamecocks. So it's a win-win situation for all of us. But this has been the Tailgate Committee. You guys better lock it up. That's our lock of the week. This has been our Week 9 show. Despite me having to take a break to use the facilities for the jump cut, which we weren't going to mention, but Noah had to bring that up. So we're here. It's Week 9. I'm Andy. That's Tom. That's Noah. This is the Tailgate Committee. Please like this video. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on social media. We're at the Tailgate Committee on Facebook and Instagram, and we are at the Tailgate.com on Twitter. Like I said, Andy, Tom, Noah, we will see you next week for Week 10. Wow, that doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right, boy.